tasked with was to look at what was the theory of change for each of these ICT for D initiatives. And the short answer was that when we looked at them, there is no explicit theory of change that was identified in the documentation or written down, but there's an implicit theory of change. And I think we could all agree on this, but I'm happy to receive feedback on this either in the questions afterwards or some other time. But ultimately, we're looking at the use of technology, the use of ICT for D, to collect and analyze large data sets to improve results for children, right? To create more efficient government service delivery, greater government accountability and transparency, and ultimately increase the access of these services for children. Moving on to our initial findings. The way that I'm going to present our initial findings is a simplified, essentially we try to use a simplified graphic. The OECD DAC criteria of impact, reliability, efficiency, relevance, sustainability, we've used those criteria to basically compare the technologies that we looked at in order to give ourselves some way to say which ones are doing great, which ones are doing pretty great, which ones are not doing so great, which ones should we change. So let's start with impact. Our review right now initially is finding that the impact for our technologies would sort of play out in this way. And the short answer is that overall, these ICT for D initiatives have had substantial impact on the women and children that they seek to address. That's the good news, right? That's fantastic. Other impact examples that we found in really high scale were Moana and Results 160, which are one and the same, really. And this has transformed the way that HIV test results are coming to children and initiating the use of ACT drugs. There's only one country, which was Rwanda, where we saw a 100% coverage of the technology, the rapid SMS system. And then last, we found that there's a gap in effectiveness in preparing local partners, local counterparts, and local citizenry for the frustrations of being a part of the digital age or being a part of a digital culture. And this comes with gaps in service, network connectivity issues, constant updates, bugs, these kinds of things that those of us who have been sort of grown up with technology our whole lives, these are things that we're kind of used to and that are part and parcel to what we expect from technology. And we haven't found that that has been communicated or the capacity has been built in order to move that forward. Again, we can say that generally ICT for D initiatives are creating efficiencies and represent sound value for money. I have a value for money slide that's going to be coming up, but generally overall, these are not poor investments overall. So what we see is two things though. One, that there's a general perception within UNICEF itself that implementing IT solutions will ultimately solve problems, create final solutions, and that they will provide essentially complete cost effectiveness, that money will, that the cost of programming will just drop to zero or go away. Rather than seeing the fact that when you're implementing these solutions that they also require substantial ongoing investment, that require different mindsets, and that they require different skill sets and talent sets. All of those things bring with them budget requirements, their own unique problems, and time and energy that need to be put into them. So while these systems can bring increased productivity, increased scale, increased reach, they also bring with them associated budgets and associated necessary skill sets. With the CDSU program, just as an example that we're going to be reporting on, there's still a perception, well, CDSU is actually housed in the government and owned by the government, quote unquote. It's still labeled UNICEF, still has UNICEF label all over it, and there's still a perception that UNICEF is the one that owns this product and owns this thing going forward. And I'll be talking about that in just a second as well, about what is the service delivery model of UNICEF. It's something that I think we should consider. But ultimately, if a program is handed over but it's still perceived to be a UNICEF program, does the government really think it owns it? It's something to consider. Going to scale. Again, slippery word, because I would say that MTRAC, MVRS, as Sharad pointed out earlier, the Rapid Pro system, you report, these are things that are already scaled. What is your definition of scale? How do you look at scale? Because if you are a bank or if you are another organization that has a very set demographic that you're targeting, going to scale could mean a whole bunch of different things. But let's say growing to scale means how do we put this in other countries, or how do we take this to other programs and use it?
Give me a sense of what you would see as the highlights of the innovations that have helped programs move forward in your specific country, some of which were noted here.
A few things to emphasize. First of all, very glad to see the review and the results, and to see that rapid SMS is on the high end. And just to mention that actually, in order to understand the model deeper, we do plan thorough formative evaluation that is actually ongoing, and we are looking for partnership for that time. I do believe that the whole system was very much relevant and contributed very much in achieving MDGs, and we have some anecdotal evidence to confirm that, but we are really looking for evaluation to confirm the findings. Maybe a few success factors that I can name. As you mentioned in your presentation, government is really sitting in a driving seat. There is a high commitment from the government. It took them a while to have a buy-in, accept the system, but now it's really running fast, scale up to all the districts.
And I think we agree that for initiatives to really succeed, they have to be really anchored in good results-based program. And you've highlighted that we have seen those initiatives that have worked well are not only anchored in a good program, but also owned by the country-led initiative, and that requires a sustained high-level engagement with government and partners to create that sort of country-led system that strengthens accountability. You've also touched upon the need some of this is incremental, as you said, and TRACK started with by looking at drug stock out. Vision that we have and government has is really one that contributes to much broader RMNCH accountability framework. So the need also to appreciate that things don't just happen overnight, that at times you need that entry point to reach where you are. So I think it's important in the report that we mention that you have looked at initiatives that were at different stages of implementation, so that it doesn't really just make sure that we understand. There were also initiatives that we selected because they didn't work, like the backpack. We knew that it needed to be, as you said, reimagined.
The only thing is that we think that there's too much data in terms of the entries that you have to make. So one of the things that we've already decided with the ministry is to reduce. Absolute agreement with the HIV, I think that's working very fast. Faster turnaround in terms of the HIV, except for some far off areas. I think it's about 70% reach. So, and then of course electronic data is easier to analyze. One of the things that I think that you could also talk about is the culture of UNICEF. I remember when I first joined, we had something called DevInfo, and that used to be talked about as a UNICEF product. And it's no longer talked about as a UNICEF product. So there's the thing about being on the ground for a long time and being able to push these things so that other people adopt it.
Real-time monitoring, which was pushed by UNICEF and adopted by the UN. So I don't think the thing of it necessarily being a UNICEF thing, because of our strong branding and longevity, should be a thing to cut it off itself. I think we should maybe have a plan for sustainability and how we move on. The other thing that I think that you forgot, it also promotes entrepreneurship. There's a lot of young people sitting in Africa depending only on agriculture. If we continue on thinking this way, and this is an opportunity to think differently for these young people, it's also an opportunity for youth empowerment and how young people can get up that ladder a little bit faster than having a hunger plot.
The first success factor was really that our approach in Zambia country office was to address a sector need through program bottleneck analysis. We introduced a technology to be able to have rapid conveyance of the information. So this was cut from 60 days to 30 days. And everybody saw the benefit of that, and it was very easy buying because it was something which not created within UNICEF, but based on discussion with all the people and all the people involved in the sector. Similarly, in U-Report, the difference between the U-Report as practiced in many other countries and the way we are practicing in Zambia is that the U-Report in Zambia is very specific to adolescent sexual and reproductive health. So looking at how do you get a confidential means of giving the young people the right information and to be able to refer them to services. So again, the ownership becomes not because of, it's not on within UNICEF, but sector-wide. So right from day one, getting it through the government analysis.
Two things. One, I wanted to point out when I was talking about the M-Track system, about the evolution. One of the really interesting pieces about it is, and Sean may be talking about this tomorrow, is that the technology is actually scheduled to become obsolete. It will actually, as far as I understand it, again, Sean can talk to it, but that evolution path started with tracking one drug, many drugs, doing the surveillance, creating feedback, and now, because it's been connected with the DHIS2 system so intimately, they're actually going to be moving the M-Track system offline and using DHIS2 as the input method as well. So that's actually super fantastic, right? That, you know, it's just another case. I wanted to emphasize the point where that's one of those technologies where we see real success. But the only other point that I wanted to, it's something to consider, and maybe we should put this in our larger topics to discuss is.
Let's open the floor to comments and questions from the colleagues around the room. And as you do raise your hands.
I think one key message that came out from the survey, and what I agree with that, is the point about the culture. Because we need, as UNICEF, to be mindful of the fact that the in-country office leadership, in terms of UNICEF management, has to play a key role in our drive to integrate innovation into our programming approach before we get to the monitoring. Even thinking about innovation in the way we analyze the issue and we think about solutions is critical.
3 questions for Stephen. When we were presenting, I was just asking myself, were these the only ones, or you had a bigger number to choose from? Because that would give us an idea of the mapping of the innovations within UNICEF. The next question is, since innovations are really, there is so much evolution in the development of these programs, what was your basis for data? What was the information base? Are we documenting them well enough for anyone to do an evaluation that is substantial? The last one, I was in Rwanda in 2008 when we started the rapid SMS. I moved to Malawi when we started off the Antro Watch. And I'm asking myself, is the rapid SMS having the same basis as what we started at that time, or is it different?
I was I was interested by the comment that you mentioned where country offices are overwhelmed by the number of apps and by the technology. And I think that this may actually call for HQ divisions and for regional offices to use the cases that we have already, gather what has it required, how has it worked, what were the expectations, what were the results, and actually make some guidance or make some documentation for other countries to be able to take over. So that could be one of the actions.
What is actually the cost of doing this innovation? How much reach are we making to the children, to the women, so that we are able to make a case that innovations have value for money? And then in commenting on scalability, based on some of the questions Jane raised, and this value for money and the cost element, what would be the appropriate recommendation on scaling up innovation?
One of the things is that we're thinking about government. I think there's also a thing about thinking how you bring the private sector into this, not maybe to a larger scale, but I think this is one of the things. And I think in terms of sustainability, you have to have government, donors, private sector, because they all offer different kind of solutions. So I think that's something else that maybe was not, it was very government centered way of looking at it. And I think one of the things that I did like was the idea about cultural change. I think this is also a very important thing in terms of innovation. How do we change people's attitudes towards technology? I would say that it's not a question of people not wanting to adapt to technology. I would just say it's not, I think it's a time factor.
I was looking at your report and I kept thinking whether we have, I mean, it does, maybe looking at it, reviewing it as a standalone initiative, maybe doesn't do justice to your report, because your report, for instance, in Uganda is being used in many different ways to support all programs. And again, Sean will present how we are now, the whole RMNCH accountability framework or nHealth framework. Your report now is institutionalized and is part of that particular framework. If I look at Eddie's 3 bubbles this morning, he talked about social accountability, client satisfaction survey, and institutional accountability. Your report now feeds into that by bringing in the voice of people. And it is, if you look at it in isolation, you may not see how important it is, but holistically, it's part of that broader system. We use it for social policy.
If something is not value for money, the likelihood of it being scaled up is low, because just as we have a lot of innovations which are originating from UNICEF, as was said early in the morning, there are many other organizations which are putting their innovations up in the market. And for me, a good example of something which is ready for scale-up is what other organizations are willing to adopt or adapt those innovations coming from UNICEF. And in Zambia, for the WASH MIS, the good thing is that we now have over 5 other partners who are willing to put their own resources into the same concept. So it's now moving away from, I guess, 2 years from now, it will no longer be an innovation, but it will be the norm. So to me, that's a good way of scale up, because they must have made their calculations and seen that it makes value for money, it's efficient, it's addressing a particular need that they really want, they are facing in the program.